man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven, and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are.
All right. Hello, my awesome family. How you guys doing? Glad to be back again talking about some more controversial stuff. I do want to just encourage you guys, those of you who are studying along. I know it's so easy to just get tossed around between different people talking about these things. Always, before you are presented with information from the Bible and hearing somebody talk like me, and we all have our opinions and biases, always pray and ask for the Father to give you discernment on this topic, that the Holy Spirit would guide you. If I'm wrong, to correct me as well. If I'm talking, I don't care how much I've prepared for something. If I'm wrong, I want him to show me, and I want to be humbled by his truth. I don't want to be pushing something out there just because it's the popular belief, which actually, what I believe is actually not as popular as it once was. Not that it ever really was too popular. It seems like the truth becomes, the more truth you find, the less popular you get. If this is a popularity contest, I would not be talking about this. I would just be kind of agreeing and putting out some of the same type of stuff that everyone else is. And so without further ado, back to the presentation. And so just a reminder about the little season. The intro video summarizes it. It's in Revelation chapter 20. And going back over all the things that people were sharing with me after we talked last weekend, I'm finding out that I think a lot of people are confusing the events of Revelation 20 with the events of Revelation 16. And so I want to do sort of a side-by-side comparison and look at those events. I'm sorry about my squeaky chair. I'm trying to arrange myself to where it's not as bad as it was last time. I noticed last time it was pretty bad. I need some WD-40 for this thing. And so for anyone who's joining in and didn't watch part one, I'll go ahead and cover what the little season is, because that's what this entire topic of discussion is about, is that little season. Are we in the little season, or are we in the millennial reign? Are we pre-millennial reign? Where are we in time? And so if you're really wanting to see my full belief on this and where the prophecies point us, in terms of timelines and events and things that have happened with creation days, with that seventh day being a day of rest, then our video, The Generations of the Heavens and the Earth, is in the description. Go back and watch that. It's one of our longer teachings, but it is packed full of some really cool bits of information and prophecies that show us, I believe, where we are in time and what's right around the corner. And it's significant. It's that 7th millennial day. And so that's according to what I've seen. And so search that out, study that out, I should say, and see where that brings you. But I'm going to go ahead and look into Revelation chapter 20. And I'm going to full screen my presentation so you guys can see it better right here. And it says, "And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years." So there's a binding of the evil one for 1,000 years. It says, "And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more." So there's going to be 1,000-year time period where there's nations that are not being deceived, till, it says, the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. And then it says, "I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years." So reigning with the beloved Son 1,000 years is going to happen. And I say that, but a lot of people believe it's already happened. And so that is what Revelation is telling us was going to happen when they wrote it. And it says in verses 5-6, "But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection." So that very first resurrection. "Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power." So that second death, that fate of the wicked, which is also controversial to talk about, "But they shall be priests of Yah and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years." So that's going on while the enemy is bound. But after, here's what happens next. "When the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints." There's a camp of the saints on the earth at this time. "So they compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city," the city is there as well, "and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them." So the fate of them, it's not a flood this time, it's fire coming from above. This is Revelation chapter 20. And so getting the world to attack the camp of the saints, that's the goal of this entire deception. Okay, he's not destroying the people that are outside the camp. Probably going to befriend them, in my opinion. Probably going to get them to unite and have a common goal of attacking this kingdom that they've known about, because during the kingdom period, the whole world's going to know who the Father is. He's going to be king of the earth. It's not going to be a time where there's other kings and, there's King Nebuchadnezzar or whoever. Like, there's not going to be other kings. It's going to be the Most High, and then the people reigning with his Son as priest. And it's going to be a pretty good time. Everyone's going to be on the path of righteousness. There's going to be things you do during the millennial reign that, according to prophecy, that haven't happened or aren't happening right now currently. So there's a lot of precursors and a lot of things that go on during the millennial reign that had me, when I was looking into this narrative of the little season, starting to realize that I don't think a lot of these things have happened yet. And I think a lot of people are confusing the events of Revelation 16 and Revelation 20. And Revelation 16, if you remember that, these are two times of deception, worldwide deception, getting the world to attack the Most High and his beloved Son. Both of those things are happening here. But Revelation 16, I'll read the whole chapter. You got this little old image of it right here. This is like an old painting, probably from who knows when. And we have what's called the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth. and of the whole world. The kings are significant. Okay. During the millennial reign, there are no kings. There are no rulers. There's no vote for Trump going on. There's none of that. Okay. During the millennial reign, there's no kings to be deceived. There are nations that can be deceived. So that's what we see in Revelation 20. But here in 16, it says, they go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Okay, so they're doing that. Then you have, of course, the enemy being bound and all of that. 1,000-year reign, no war. Yahuwah is king, and all will know him, according to prophecy, during that 1,000-year reign. Okay, there's no nation rising against nation going on. There's peace for 1,000 years. Then there's Revelation 20, which we just looked at, where they are going out to deceive, or the enemy, Satan, shall be loosed out of his prison to deceive the nations. So to know which one you're in, look at who's being deceived. Are there kings and leaders being deceived, or are there nations being deceived? So right now, I believe there's kings on this earth. There's royalty. There's the United Kingdom. There's the United States. We have our leafs, or leafs. What do you call them? Leaders and people like presidents, which are essentially kings. You've got the Pope. You have all these different world leaders. And so there's a lot of deception going on right now. We are in a time of great deception. And so going through Revelation 16, we're going to break it down. It says, and I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth, like we just said, and of the whole world, to gather them to battle of that great day of God Almighty, a day that they know is coming. When Yeshua was talking to those unclean spirits, what did they say to him? They were talking about their time that was coming. Are you here, basically to torment us before our time, before this great day? It's going to be great, but it's also going to be dreadful for some. And so that great day of God Almighty, it says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. So I'm thinking there's a lot of confusion between Armageddon, what that is, versus Gog and Magog. And so I wanted to compare the two and go over something really cool real quick. I find this fascinating. We're talking about unclean spirits like frogs, right? I've been doing this study and I'm looking up unclean spirits like frogs. And then I see this interesting picture here you see on the left with the frog coming out of a frog's mouth. And I just, out of curiosity, I'm like, what is this? I'm literally reading verses about unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of these different characters. And I see a frog coming out of the mouth of another frog. We'll come to find out, it's what's called a gastric brooding frog, or a platypus frog. It's a weird name. And it's an extinct ground-dwelling frog native to Queensland in East Australia. The genus consisted of only 2 species, both of which became extinct in the 80s. So now here we are in these last, seeming like end-time deceptions, last day type events, and we have them resurrecting a species of frogs that comes out of the mouth of their parent. So you have these frogs coming out of the mouth of their mother, so to speak. Really weird, because the tadpoles and everything kind of develop inside, similar to how our babies grow inside of people, and they don't come out their mouth. That would be awkward. Thank goodness that would be an awkward dinner table thing where you're just talking and all of a sudden this happens. But yeah, they have the frog coming out of the mouth. Thought that was fascinating. Just wanted to piece that in there, just due to the times we're in. Just seems prophetic that they're resurrecting this species almost 40 years after it went extinct. Very telling. And so to get back to the Armageddon conversation for Revelation 16, Armageddon is mentioned throughout the Bible in a few places, but when you look up that word, it's also you can find Armageddon or Mount Megiddo, which is it's a geographical location. And so there was a king of what they call Megiddo in Joshua. And when you look at Joshua chapter 17, they were supposed to have wiped out Megiddo, which is now referred to as Armageddon. And they didn't. It says here in Joshua 17, and Manasseh shall have in Issachar and Asher, Bethsan, and their villages, and the inhabitants of Dor and its villages, and the inhabitants of Megiddo, that property, this property that was given out generations earlier when Noah was giving the property in the lands to his sons. But it says, and its villages, yet the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of those cities. But the Canaanites would dwell in that land. So you have Canaanites dwelling in this land known as what is now called Armageddon to most people. And so they couldn't drive them out all the way, which usually, you're supposed to. You're supposed to drive out everyone. They were not able to do that. And it says, yet it came to pass when the children of Israel were waxing strong that they put the Canaanites to tribute, but did not utterly drive them out. Very interesting there. They didn't wipe out the entire place like they usually did. And then again, here in, what verse is this? Let me move my cursor so that will go away. Judges chapter 5, it talks about Megiddo, spelled a little differently. I'm going from translation to translation. I don't always stick to the same translation, so I'm sorry if you don't know where these are coming from. I grab these doing my studies, and I always forget to put where they're from. But I found it interesting in Judges here. It says kings set themselves in array. Then the kings of, I'm assuming that's Canaan, like it mentioned in Joshua, fought in Thanach at the water of Megiddo or Armageddon, and they took no gift of money. The stars from heaven set themselves in array. So it's talking about the stars of heaven, which is fascinating because with the real Armageddon around that time, there's stars falling from heaven. So interesting. I'm sure there's something prophetic there. You guys may have done some more research into that. But here is the actual location on maps today that's called Armageddon. And guess who owns it? UNESCO, an agency of the United Nations that has the aim of promoting world peace and security. So you've got the UN owning Armageddon. Find that fascinating. Uniting the nations and the kings of the earth to battle. What better way to get them all there is if you own the territory. And so it's a property of the UN. Extremely fascinating. The UN or UNESCO also owns a lot of places. Hundreds of places. I went through their list last night. They own the ruins of Babylon, pyramids of Giza, Jesuit ruin, not really ruins, but Jesuit, one of them's a ruin. Old Jesuit temples from when they first started creating that order. That was when they were giving birth to the heliocentric model. But these are just a few places they own. They own a lot. They own like Yellowstone and just like all these old places that are associated with like ancient gods and these, historic places. They own them. So very interesting that it's a UN organization doing that. And like it says here, with their aim of promoting world peace and security. Just too cool there. And now we've got on a map roughly where this place is, Armageddon, or Armageddon, however you want to say it, right there. They talked about the waters of Armageddon in that Bible verse, and so there it is near water. I think it's a pretty big territory, though. It's probably bigger than that. And then you have the region of Gog and Magog somewhere in this area and to the north and northeast of that. When you're looking, we're reading Jubilees, and they were talking about the territories given to Noah's children. And when it talks about Gog and Magog in that book, they are locations. Okay. Now, there's a chance a lot of people think it's rulers at that time. There's rulers named Gog and Magog. But their original meanings, they were actual locations. All right. And so to finish up with chapter 16 here in Revelation, it says, and the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, it is done. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth. So the greatest earthquake ever. So mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts. And the cities of the nations fell. So the cities of the nations are going to fall. It's interesting that people are fleeing the cities like crazy. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath, and every island fled away. This is before the millennial reign. And the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hell out of heaven. So remember, with Revelation 20, it was fire. This is great hell out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. I need to look up how much that is. I can't remember exactly how much that weighs. And men blasphemed God because of the plague of hell, for the plague thereof was exceeding great. And so essentially, you've got Revelation 20. The threat is on the ground, where you have these people where it says, when the adversary is set free from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations in the four quarters of the earth, you have these people going out there, the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog. And if you look at that area on the map, I could probably pull that back up. It's, if you go north and northeast, like it says in Jubilees, that's like Russia and China, that area. If you were to just keep going further, it's modern day Russia and China. And so it all depends on how far you go, but that's north and northeast of what we were looking at, or very close to that. And so there's a lot of other territories in there, a lot of significant countries and places. So it says, their number is countless as the sand of the seashore. On the seashore, they came up over the breadth of the land surrounding the camp. So they're going to be deceiving them to surround and charge for the camp, where they're eventually going to meet their fate. And so side by side, a little visual here. I'm a visual person. The first threat, Revelation 16, where is it coming from? They're trying to get people to war against God Almighty that great day, with the threat coming from above. You know, it's the alien threat we've been warning people about. Watch the final card if you don't know why that's interesting. The threat they're pushing is there's this threat above us constantly. Chinese satellites above us, UFOs above us, you name it. If it's that extraterrestrial threat they've been pushing for years, putting it into programming, making us believe it, and this stuff is just so advanced our military can't keep up with it. It's an intense threat, and it's coming from above. Okay, that's the threat they're trying to gear us up into believing, that we have these satellites out in space, and China and Russia and all them people are going after our satellites. You know, just whatever fear they can put into us. Asteroids coming from above, which when you read Revelation, there is something called wormwood. I hope I have that in my slides. I think I do. Not 100% sure. But that's a comparison. That's a visual, so you guys can see that. And I know it's easy to confuse the two. When I go through Revelation, I have to lay it out, because going through it, I remember just being so confused, like, what is going on? There sounds like there's two judgments. It sounds like there's all these different things. What's the timeline look like? And so lay it out. I'm going to try to, hopefully, there's actually some good videos out there that talk about this stuff. I'll try to share those as well. The punishments, though, the first one with Revelation 16 was the hailstones. The second time, I find that interesting. It's the opposite. It's fire from heaven. So two different punishments. And that's one thing that'll hopefully give you a clear image in your minds, because a lot of people think that the fire from heaven aspect has already happened, that there's all these melted structures because there's this fire aspect. But with Revelation 16, before the millennial reign, it is actually hailstones. And so now I'm going to go back and look at the verses that seem to indicate this millennial reign has happened. I want to cover them again because there's one that I didn't have as much context with, like I should have. I should have shown you the verses before it, and would have provided some more clarity. The first one was that verse talking about them not tasting death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And for me, this was one of the first verses somebody shared with me, and they were they told me, they said, "Hey, I'm a preterist," and this was years ago. And here's some verses that I've been looking at, and I believe that we're in the little season. Here's why. And so I read it, and this was before I knew the prophecies and really studied out the timeline. And so it was very convincing. I was like, wow, maybe we are further along. Maybe the return did happen. And so this was one of those things that really tripped me up. And it says, "Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death, till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." And what makes this clear, what clears up the confusion with this, is knowing who he's talking to. He's talking to all of the disciples, and there was one of them there that he knew was going to betray him, one that was going to die, one of them named Judas. And so he could have just said, "Hey, I'm going to let you guys know when you see me basically entering into his kingdom, when he's taken up with the clouds in the book of Acts, when this happens, all of you are going to be alive. Well, except for Judas over here. He's going to die. He's going to betray me. He chose to say things a little differently, that you shall not, that essentially that there's going to be some of you standing here that shall not have tasted of death, essentially, until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Good way of wording that. And then you go to the book of Acts, chapter 1, verse 9, it says, and when he had spoken these things, they beheld, and he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And that's where he is coming into his Father's kingdom, or entering into, not returning with the kingdom, but coming into or going into his Father's kingdom. And then I looked at this verse as well, where it says, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. The context here is key. I did not show you the verses before it. Sorry for that. But the verse before that, he's telling them about all these end time events, all these things that are going to happen, all these precursors. And he says, now learn a parable of the fig tree. So a fig tree, if you've ever had fig trees, I'm fortunate to have had a few. And every time when I first planted these trees, when spring would come, I would think, I think they're dead. You know, what have I done? They're dead. They were one of the last trees to put out their leaves. And this is from my experience. I'm not a well-seasoned farmer, but I'd always think they were dead, and I'd be devastated. I'd be praying, you know, come back. And they would come back, and I'm like, it's a miracle. They're back. You know, they were dead, and now they're here. They're alive. But they actually, and from my experience, are a little later to produce their leaves. And so it says here, now learn a parable of the fig tree when his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves. So this is later in the spring. This is right before summer. It says, ye know that summer is nigh. Summer is close. So likewise, ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. So this is a parable of the fig tree. He always taught in parables. And he says, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. And so in my understanding, it's that generation that is of the parable of the fig tree generation, where they're seeing all of these things taking place. Okay. That's my current understanding. Not exactly the generation that he was talking to is not going to pass, because he's already told them they're going to die. They're going to be hated. They're going to be killed. They've got to get this message out to the entire world, this gospel of the kingdom, this message that has been perverted and changed so many times that people like me trying to, you know, people are like, hey, you need to be talking about the gospel. I didn't even know what that was. I think most people don't know what the gospel of the kingdom is, because they've changed it. They've tried to make it be something it's not. And so that's one thing I want to address too, because we need to be teaching, like Yeshua said, the gospel of the kingdom. And if it came right after he left, then that is a lot of generations of people who don't really need to teach the gospel of the kingdom, because those things already happened. And so it puts you in a different place. So fascinating stuff right here. We're about to get into Flavius Josephus. I get this one a lot, that he saw the return of the Messiah. And this was in one of the first, not one of the first, but one of the few videos I watched on this topic early on, was someone talking about this guy who was writing about these end time events, and that he saw the return. He saw it happen. And so I go through and I'm reading what he says. So this is Flavius Josephus. He was around that time that a lot of people think the millennial reign kicked off, and that they've been hiding it. And so Flavius Josephus seen chariots and troops of soldiers running around in the clouds. Well, let's see what he says right here. And one of his first quotes was that I found that I thought was interesting. It says, so it was when a star resembling a sword, this is a different account, stood over the city, and a comet which continued for a year. I think they want to hide that passage because it totally debunks the globe. But it says it was when a star resembling a sword stood over the city. Keep that out of the heliocentric handbooks. And a comet which continued for a year. And so I looked that up. I thought, man, a comet for a year? I've never seen one that long. But they say the record, according to our, Google search, that the record was like 18 months. And so a comet being in the sky that long seems to go against their narrative. But they saw it for a year. And this was a time of war. And so he was relating that to times of war where they were at. And it says in another, later on in the book, it says, besides these, a few days after that feast, on the 21st day of the month, and they called that month, I thought this was interesting. You know, we have Artemis, the moon mission. It says Artemisius, it's pretty much named after that false god Artemis, which is like the daughter of Apollo, I think. Twin daughter, or I think it's a twin daughter. Is Artemis the daughter or the son? I think it's a daughter. And this person put in brackets here, they think that was either May or June. And it says, a certain prodigious, big word, and incredible phenomenon appeared. I suppose the account of it would seem to be a fable were it not related by those that saw it. So he didn't even see it, I don't think. It sounds like he's saying that other people saw it, had it not been related by those that saw it, and were not the events that followed it of so considerable a nature as to deserve such signals. For before sun setting, chariots and troops of soldiers in their armor were seen running about among the clouds and surrounding of cities. So you have this guy detailing of an eyewitness account before sun sets, not before it gets dark. You know, the sun and the moon going dark and all that. This is just the sun setting. That chariots and troops of soldiers in their armor were seen running about among the clouds. Very fascinating, very significant. And the surrounding cities. Moreover, at that feast, which we call Pentecost, as the priests were going by night into the inner court of the temple, as their custom was to perform their sacred ministrations, they said that in the first place they felt quaking and heard a great noise, and after that they heard a sound as of a great multitude saying, let us remove hence. And I was reading this, it sounds a lot like Pentecost, all the things that are going on here. But this event he saw in the sky, was that the return of the Messiah? He saw it before the sunset. So the sunset, he's able to write about it comfortably from his little office. And so it reminds me of this verse here in the book of Acts. It says, and on my servants, when they're talking about the prophecies, and on my handmaidens, I will pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy, and I will show wonders in heaven above and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and notable day of the Lord come. And so the sun here, there was wonders in the heaven, but the sun set, didn't go dark. A lot of things didn't happen that should happen. And so here's some of the things that Flavius did not see or write about. From what I've gathered, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. He did not see the return of Yeshua, which it says every eye will see. He was detailing an eyewitness account. The resurrection of the dead, the mark of the beast, battle of Armageddon, great hell falling out of heaven, plaguing men, lying signs and wonders, son of perdition claiming to be God, tribulation, stars falling, sun going dark, great mountain burning with fire cast into the sea. Now that could be spiritual. It may not be literal. I've heard people have, different opinions on that. And a third part of the water becoming blood, star called wormwood falling, and a third part of the water become wormwood, and a third part of the water becoming, I think I had a typo there. Sorry about that. Millennial kingdom actually on the earth being set up. He didn't talk about that. And world peace. He's talking about a lot of wars, no peace, none of that. And he's not talking about anything we looked at in our first video where the pure language is being restored. Okay, when the millennial kingdom's here, guys, the Tower of Babel, where every language was changed, that's going to be undone. We're going to have a pure language. We're all going to speak the same language. So you people here that are bilingual and you want to talk to people, or you're not bilingual and you want to talk to somebody else from another country, you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to talk to our brothers and sisters from all around the world. It's going to be a unique time. He didn't experience any of that from what I can tell. Now at Pentecost, there were people speaking in tongues, and the people around them that spoke different languages understood. It's one of the gifts of the Spirit. So fascinating stuff. The signs they saw in the heaven, I'm not saying they didn't happen. I'm not going to deny that. I believe they could have seen chariots running around the sky, a comet for over a year, a star that stayed in the same spot for a year, on the model that we live on, possible. Okay. So we're going to see those things according to prophecy. which means we're going to see them. If it's in prophecy, we're going to see it 100%. Now, looking at the structures, this is where I get a lot of people. Sorry again for the squeaky chair. A lot of people sending me images and things of like, look, we can't even do that today. Like this structure here, Sistine Chapel type of structures, things that are carved into stone. We don't put forth nearly the effort that people in the past did into building things. We've gotten lazier, and I want to say we've gotten dumbed down quite a bit. We really have. And wisdom, I mean, knowledge is increasing. We know a lot. I mean, we have the ability to search up so many things, to see structures like this, where it looks like when they carved this thing, it was like mud at one point, like the building on the right, that it was just like mud or clay, and they just like molded it, and then they just somehow like superheated it like brick and turned it into a building. Or they just spent a lot of time carving this thing out with an advanced technological tool. And so a lot of people see these things and they say these are structures that were during the millennial kingdom. And a lot of them are buried up in mud. They start doing some digging and excavating. You find them, and there's the mud floods, things like this. They dig back layers, and you see buildings that were underground, and it's in a lot of people's mind proof of this millennial kingdom we've just built on top of the millennial kingdom. But going back to Revelation 20, there's after the enemies let loose, it doesn't say that he destroys everything and then starts over like a great reset and then has, thousands of years to deceive the nations. He's trying to unite everybody. He's uniting people. He's uniting the world with one common goal, to attack the millennial kingdom, a kingdom that they know is there because prophecy tells us that everyone knows it's there. You have to go there yearly, someone from your nation yearly, to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. And it tells us his law is coming forth out of Zion, out of the millennial kingdom. So you have a lot of different things going on. And these structures, things being built on top of other things, items being buried in mud, makes perfect sense because that flood wasn't very long ago. The flood that we had, the Great Flood, was a couple thousand years, or I guess over a couple thousand years before Christ. And so we're not far removed from when Yeshua was here. Hasn't been that long. And these people, or these artifacts, have stuck around. A lot of them, a lot of these advanced structures preserved underground. We're just now digging a lot of these things up. Giant bones, because there was a battle that ensued. If you've never read the book of Enoch, those giants battling it out. That's why we don't have a complete set of dinosaur bones. These things are not dinosaur bones. They're bones of those corrupt flesh, the Nephilim, whatever you want to call the things that were roaming the earth at that point. They were definitely for corrupting and destroying mankind. That's why they were wiped out. And it would take a large flood and a major battle to move bones the size of your couch to where they're not all in the same place. Okay. If something's dragging a femur bone that's the size of your couch away, think about how large that creature would be. Okay. It's not. It was a flood. A flood came through, and it wasn't that long ago. So a lot of these seemingly melted structures, and I've looked at them, these things are really cool, but they remind me of what happens, not when you see this here. This is another example of, this is actual melted sand with stones infused in it. This is where the Red Sea crossing happened, where the pillar of fire went across. And so you can melt the sand and you can have stones infused. You can have things like this. Biblical events happen like that. There's a glass puddle where the Red Sea crossing happened. Pretty cool stuff. But what I think we're seeing here with those buildings that look like they've melted is you have these giant structures. It's kind of like a cave, like a stalactite. When you have floods going over tops of things, moving in all the sediments and minerals, you can have regular objects turn into what looks like melted stone. Okay, this cliff right here, they can have these objects like a teddy bear can turn into stone within a matter of months. Like 3 months down the road, you hang a teddy bear from a string, you come back, it's a stone. Okay, those deposits move and they cover things up. And so you'll see things like this. Let me see if I have any more pictures down here. But you'll also see with all the waters raising, because we had a flood, there's entire cities that are still underwater. Okay, scuba divers going down there. I mean, imagine you're moving some gravel away and then you see a tile floor from a civilization that's most likely pre-flood. How cool is that? The first ones to see somebody's floor from one of these dynasties. And here's a little visual of the timeline. 4000 BC, you've got the creation account. Then you have corrupting of all flesh. Just took a little more than 1,000 years to corrupt all the flesh, according to the book of Enoch, well, except for Noah and his families, some of the clean animals. But the flood was around 2344 BC, so 2,344 years before Christ. Okay, according to calendars that I've looked up, this isn't stuff that I've actually done some deep digging into, so you can correct me if I'm wrong there. Ancient structures, things like the pyramid that we still don't know how they built them. These are not millennial kingdom structures. These are structures, in my opinion, built by those pre-flood Nephilim, the wisdom of the fallen being used, the same wisdom that resurfaced because the sons of Noah, when they're going out and inhabiting the earth again, they're finding these writings, things that they taught mankind back then. They carved them in stone. These unclean spirits, the Nephilim that, that when they died, their spirits lived on to become unclean spirits. That's where those things come from. They were still around in the days of Noah. When Noah comes back, they were tormenting his grandchildren. And, Noah cries out to the Most High and says, hey, they're tormenting my children. Do something about this. And they bind 9/10 of them. So only 1/10 of the unclean spirits that were around then is still around today. So they bound most of them. So we're not even experiencing the full effect of these unclean spirits. And it's bad. Okay, these things are everywhere. And so looking at these structures, looking at their old paintings, yes, we can't build them now. They had giants walking around, most likely helping them build these structures before the flood. People worshiping these things as gods. They were against mankind. They were against the Most High. That's why the flood had to happen. And so a lot of these structures we can't explain is because we don't have the smarts and know-how that they had back then. They are intentionally dumbing us down. You can't deceive us about a alien threat unless you really dumb us down, make us forget what's above our heads, a firmament, make us forget who made everything. Then you can deceive us into uniting to attack against this extraterrestrial threat. It's in every movie programming you see with the bad guys now. That threat is always coming from some supervillain out in space, coming from above. I had a good conversation with Mikey Jenny from Little Light Studios, and he was showing me all the times where they've done that, and it blew my mind. This stuff has been in our faces our entire lives. They are dumbing us down and programming us to forget about the Most High and his ways and what he's been through. And so that's the point of a lot of these deceptions. And it's going to ramp up. It's going to get worse. So we have to be prepared for these deceptions. We have to know, are we in Revelation 16 events that are about to happen, or are we after the little season getting ready for Revelation chapter 20 events, Armageddon? I believe wholeheartedly from what I'm seeing with prophecy and where I'm being led that we are before that time period, right before, that generation of the fig tree, or parable of the fig tree generation, right before the millennial kingdom starts, right before the return of the beloved Son and the Most High coming down here and setting up that kingdom. It's going to be spectacular. Okay. So corrupting all flesh 2.0, that's underway. That's Revelation 18. And you guys have most likely read that, Deceiving All Nations, with that pharmakia, things that are happening now. And so, again, a reminder, after that 1,000-year period, it doesn't say that the devil destroys villages outside of the camp of the saints and does like a factory reset and has a lot of time. It's a little season, and he's gathering together the entire world. And it's a battle going against a kingdom that they know is there. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that clarifies the difference between Revelation 16 and Revelation 20. It's a lot to look into. And so I wanted to hopefully bring some clarity to this, because this topic is massive and you're going to get flooded with videos. And now that I've been looking into it, I'm seeing all sorts of videos pop up on my feed getting recommended about these ancient structures that seemingly prove that the millennial kingdom came and these people made these Gothic structures and Sistine Chapel-like buildings while they were doing the Father's will and on that path to righteousness. I don't see that being a part of prophecy either, that they're going to make these structures and put paintings in there and create the creeds of Rome that changed the image of the Messiah. And we've just had so much going on in the last 1,000 years. It's been war after deception, Big Bang model, heliocentric model, the Inquisitions. We've had a lot of things going on since Yeshua came and left. And so a lot of things and a lot of precursors we just haven't had yet, in my opinion, based on what the Bible's telling me, what the Word's telling me. And so I admire and respect everyone who has been sharing stuff. Continue sharing. If you say, hey, look, you've talked about all this, but you missed this prophecy here, please share it. I've had a lot of videos shared. I just haven't had a whole lot of prophecies shared with me at this point for people who believe in the little season. And so please share that with me if you have some stuff. We can continue doing this research together. But I wanted to share some verses real quick before we end this. I don't want to end too soon. I want to hang out with you guys a little bit after this. This is in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. It says, now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together unto him, that you be not shaken in mind or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And that word son of perdition was really intriguing to me, because I was like, what is the son of perdition? Well, we're reading Jubilees. We're doing a study on that, and it talks about the sons of perdition being destroyed in the flood. So it almost sounds like they are Nephilim. So very interesting there. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So this figure saying he's the Most High, sitting in that temple, showing himself that he is God, saying he is the Most High. They've already created a false, lawless version, pretty much, of the Messiah that claims to be God. And so that's controversial, I know. Yeshua said he was the Son of the Most High, but there's going to be a figure that a lot of different denominations are going to align with. You've got the Jews over here waiting for a Messiah. You've got the Christians, most of the Christians believing in a different version of the Messiah, a Roman Creed version of the Messiah. And you have just all these world religions that would fall for this same exact thing. They're trying to make a version of their own, or they already have, and that's the one that's going to claim to be God. And it says, remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things. And now you know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. So that mystery of iniquity, that's an entirely different topic. Think about iniquity, guys. Lawlessness, a mystery of lawlessness. That word iniquity, I need to look up this one here, but usually it means an utter disregard for God's law. So the mystery of that was already working at that time. And it says only he, and this is confusing wording. I'm going to try to pull up different versions later. I may have it in my slides. It says only he who now letteth will let. That makes no sense to me. So I started looking at other translations. Until he be taken out of the way, and then shall that wicked one be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness. So all about that deceiving people, the unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believed not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. The enemy's trying to get you to have pleasure in unrighteousness. And I'm pretty sure when he's unbound, it's going to be the same way. Like, hey, you guys have been ruling or outside this camp for 1,000 years. You've had all these rules. Of course, you've been prospering and you've been doing all this stuff. You're having to plow, but hey, I can offer you a different way. And we could go after this righteous leader, and we can just sort of do as thou wilt, like the good old days, and probably start trying to bring back memories. Those wisdom of the fallen memories when they were doing the stuff they're doing now. All of that unrighteousness that's been pushed upon us for so long. So definite deceptions ahead. And here's the CJB version I wanted to share. I said I thought I had this in my notes, where it says, only he who now letteth will let. And I'm like, that's confusing. What is he saying? He who letteth will let. It says, now, this is a little more clear in my opinion. It says, and now you know what is restraining, so that he may be revealed in his own time. For already the separating from Father's instructions, or Torah, is at work secretly. Okay, been doing it secretly, but it will be secretly only until he who is restraining is out of the way. Then the one who embodies separation, basically from the law, the lawlessness here, from Torah, will be revealed, the one whom the Lord Yeshua will slay with the breath of his mouth and destroy by the glory of his coming. So I thought that was fascinating, coming from their perspective. I'd have to look into those words again, do a deeper study on this, but a mystery of iniquity. Got to think about that. Who is Yeshua going to say, depart from me, when they return? Those of you who practice iniquity or lawlessness. Big deal there. Now, I'll try to end on this one. I think this was the last one I had. It says, keep away. This is in 2 Timothy. Keep away from godless babbling, for those who engage in it will only become more ungodly. And their teaching, people who are teaching, they're babbling, will eat away at people like gangrene. Hymenaeus and Philetus are among these. They have missed the mark as far as truth is concerned by saying that our resurrection has already taken place, and they are overturning some people's faith. Nevertheless, God's firm foundation stands stamped with these words, the Lord knows his own, and let everyone who claims he belongs to the Lord stand apart from wrongdoing. Big deal. So really, just fascinating stuff here in this study. There's a lot more things to talk about when it comes to this stuff. And so I value your guys' time investigating this with us. Some of you have I've already got my mind made up. We're in the little season. Don't talk to me. I appreciate you guys staying with us, looking into this again and sharing verses. I've had some of you share some verses with us. It's been a great blessing. It's really challenged me on this and opened my understanding up to a lot of things that I would have never looked into otherwise. Thank you, Natty Bumpo, for the super chat. Major blessing. Thank you guys for your support. If anyone else did while I was looking at the presentation, I'm sorry if I missed you. But somebody says, question to Brother Josh, would you mind reading Isaiah 26:19 to 21, please? Okay, I will see if I can pull that up real quick. Isaiah 26. Pull that up for you. All right, and I will try to get better at doing this stuff seamlessly, sharing my screen and all that. Present, share screen, because I want this to be like a study session where we're literally looking at things together. So you can see this is kind of how it goes. You guys share something with me and I look into it. And if it leads me in a different path, okay, that's great. If it shows me some truth that I'm missing, that'd be good. All right. So there it is. Ignore all the Temu ads. These things pop up. Bible Gateway used to not have all these ads. I apologize for that. Let me see if I can get rid of these things. There we go. So let me go back to your recommendation. Which verses was it? 19 through 21. Scrolling down. And again, it's context. Sometimes I'll read these things and I'll be like, oh my goodness. And then I have to go back and look what it said before it. Thy dead men shall live together, with my dead body shall they arise, awake, and sing, that dwell in the dust. For thy dew is as the dew of herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead. That's cool. Come, my people, enter thou into thy chambers, and shut thy doors about thee. Hide thyself, as it were, for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast. For behold, the Lord cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth also shall disclose her blood, and shall no man cover her slain. It's pretty cool. So what was, let's see, what was your thought with that? If you don't mind, let me see if I can scroll down to the bottom. If you're still with us, Supatone, A&M, Supatone, Supatone. There it is. rapture, tribulation, coming of Jesus. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, basically, because a lot of people think there's like a resurrection before the first resurrection. I think it's more of we're not going to experience the downpouring of that wrath. Like it says, we're going to meet him in the air, and the wrath and all the stuff happening on the ground level. So yeah, it's more of a pre-wrath sort of prophecy there, it sounds like. Thanks for sharing. Where's that at? There it is. You guys have any questions about anything we've said? I know I'm all over the place with these things, but being visual, I like to see comparisons, side by sides, how things line up with prophecy. That Flavius Josephus character, interesting stuff, and I think we need to investigate these things. I would be wrong to just go, that doesn't line up with what I believe. I don't want to look into that. So thank you guys for sharing these things with me. It's definitely pushed me to a better place with my understanding of Revelation. Revelation used to be the most confusing book in the world to me. It was amazing. Shabbat. Yeah, thank you. National Park. Wheat into the barn. Yeah, such an interesting topic. I agree. It's fascinating, and it is cool looking at these old structures. Like in looking at the old technology, I do believe there was technology way advanced from what we have now. And when you look at things like air travel, I believe in the 1500s they were in air balloons and airships traveling around. I don't think they made an accurate world map in the 1500s like they did the Urbano map. I think that's what it is. I don't think they made that to scale. I mean, this thing lines up with modern day air age maps. I don't think you could do that going around the world in a boat. I mean, you probably could. I don't know how. Like, I'm trying to imagine myself taking on this task. I don't think what I would draw would look anything like the world to scale if I was going around in a boat, seeing these shorelines and going way out to sea for what feels like thousands of miles, and then seeing a land, and then, okay, I think it's right here on this little map. Like, and this guy was documenting creatures and things from all around the world. There's just no way on a boat you can go around and see all those different places and all those different creatures and have all those different stories and testimonies. He's talking about stuff at the North Pole area, and then he's coming back down and talking about things, like just far south, like just ridiculous distances. He's got a map of the world. And so this was the 1500s, after allegedly Christopher Columbus, just shortly after his time period, 1492, when he allegedly discovered a land that was already inhabited. And so the New World, like, they didn't know it was out there. They knew these things. So definitely technology out there that's fascinating. People put a lot more effort into things. Just the statues alone. And I look at some of these rock statues carved out of stone, allegedly, and I'm like, it just looks like they were making molds of bodies, and they had this technology. Instead of like concrete, it turns it into something like limestone or marble, and we just think that it's marble. Maybe they had some way to do that, but there are some statues in the rough draft phases where I'm like, well, maybe they did carve these things out. They just put a lot more time and effort into what they did. They actually spent their lives devoting themselves to these tasks. We don't do that anymore. We're just spoon-fed what the education they want to give us. We're never really given a trade right away, usually. And we go through school. We learn so many different things. We know a little bit about a lot. Okay. And these people back then, they knew a lot about whatever they specialized in. And so definitely different times. And now we're in a time of major deception. Revelation chapter 16, those are a lot of deceptions. And then chapter 20, there's a lot of deceptions again, but those deceptions both have a purpose, and that purpose is the same. It's to go after the Most High. It's to go after our Creator and His beloved Son, both times. So fascinating stuff. Sorry about the chair. Every time I move, it does that. Need to get a new chair. Yeah, so we got to work hard with our children. That reminds me again, if anybody is interested in education content for children, I'm not providing a whole lot right now. I've been busy working with my school and my day job, but I'm hoping next year, if the support allows, to be able to step back, step away, and just focus on creation content and curriculum for homeschool people or people who are just wanting to take classes and learn about the world. So any questions? Yeah, Debbie said here, if you have any questions about anything, please put it in all caps so I can see it. I don't want to miss a question. Someone said, please explain Matthew 24:64. Let me see if that's in my presentation. 24:64. 24:64. No, I don't see it. Matthew 24:64 down at the bottom. Wait, you said 24? Let me check. I'm reading the right because I don't see a 64. 24. Did you mean 54? Or let's see. I don't even, is there a 54? It stops at 51. So I'm like, it's a long chapter. Let me know which verse you were talking about there, please, Daniel. Thank you. What about 2 Thessalonians chapter 2? I believe that's one we were reading. We read right before we ended this. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, talking about those lying signs and wonders. Yeah. If you haven't watched this video, for joining in late, I do not believe we're in the little season. This is an investigation trying to look at all the evidence I've been presented, and there's some really good evidence that makes it look like something's happened. There's been a cover-up. There's been history that we've been lied to essentially about the past. Not denying that whatsoever. However, we're not in the little season, according to prophecy and what I've seen. There's so many different little precursors. I'm going to try to see if I can pull some of them up. Where I believe we are in time is right there where it says 2000 AD, right past that, right about at that 7th millennial day. So about to enter what I believe that 1,000-year reign, the millennial reign. A lot of people call it the millennial reign. And so I like to look at things with millennial days. We have a teaching about that. If you haven't seen it, it's in the description. The generations of the heavens and the earth, how there's such a cool parallel with the creation days. And I'm not saying creation days were 1,000-year periods. I'm just saying there's a parallel, a prophetic timeline there, especially right when you look past. I mean, in chapter 2, it says these are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. So it tells us that right there in Genesis. And so fascinating stuff. Let me see if I can skip to the precursors here. Again, the timeline, if the little season timeline that I was given, people that think we're in the little season, is different than what I just showed you, what I believe. They say 1,000 years was added to our calendar. So instead of 2024, we're in 1,000, somewhere around there, 1,024. And the millennial reign started around 70 AD. So it would be going on. We'd still be in the millennial reign, according to that math. And there's different math. I mean, there's people that have different dates. I'm not saying all of them believe that. It's kind of like the shape of the world. We all have different beliefs on it. Find it. Precursors. Am I going the wrong direction? I am going the wrong direction. Sorry, guys. Precursors. Yeah, there's some fascinating stuff. If you missed our first video, we looked at that evidence like this, where there's like a letter J sometimes on documents. And I found this out. Somebody sent me something that was different information about the name of the Messiah. And I actually learned something about this topic here. Thank you very much. Esoterica, thanks for the super chat. It says, I believe phones, casting spells, demons, spiritually evacuated. They don't have the love of God. Cell phones, casting spells. Yeah, it seems that way. Working with teenagers, my goodness, it does seem that way. But yeah, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate that. Definitely does seem like they're under a spell. And I've seen myself fall into that, where you're just staring and you're like, what am I doing? Get away from my phone. You can throw it across the room. But yeah, I learned something new about this. The letter J, the reason it's replacing a 1 in a lot of these tombstones, people have shared with me, like J722, which a lot of people said was actually the year 722, and the J stood for Jesus. Even though you look, and when there's another 1, it's also a J. It's because early on, I mean, we get a lot of our things from Rome. We're essentially Rome 2.0. They were using J's to replace the Roman numeral 1 back then in a lot of situations. And so when the letter J was invented, that was its initial purpose. And so you don't see things like that. Usually it's like this. Tombstones everywhere that have that J looking 1. But you have to find numbers, like my wife said, that have a 1 somewhere else. Like this one has this like 3 different ones or 2 different ones, 1791, and then another one up in the for the 1 and 14th. It was like July 14th. They had a 1 that also looked like a J. So these things can be replicated. And I posted that information on here about the letter J. I thought it was fascinating because somebody was trying to tell me that, if I say Yeshua, they get mad and they want me to say Jesus. Or if I say Jesus, people get mad and they want me to say Yeshua. So they send me information. And one of the links they shared, I clicked on it and found that out. So fascinating. I didn't cover the millennial reign being at the North Pole. I didn't cover that in this video. Just kind of going through my old notes. There's reasons people believe that, and I understand. So if you want to see all that, watch part 1. It's in the description. But precursors to the millennial reign are to the return, gospel of the kingdom being preached throughout the world. Here's a visual for you visual people. Mark of the beast, stars falling, tribulation, moon stops giving its light, sun being darkened, abomination of desolation, false Christ. So many different things. And you can kind of go through and see where we're getting these. A lot of them are from the words of the Messiah in Matthew chapter 24. Went over this all in detail in our first video. So feel free to go back, watch that as we go through all that. I don't want to make this where we're going through the same type of stuff, but just know it's there. This actual presentation is actually there too in the comments. I've linked it in the comments, and it might be in the description as well of that video. But our presentation is there, so you can see what we're seeing and study it for yourself. Use it to help you out. If you're wanting to challenge what we believe, you can use that and say, hey, you say this, well, look at this. So do not mind that whatsoever. But lots of things happening before and during that millennial reign. I mean, it's just fascinating. It really does help strengthen your understanding of prophecy and what's ahead of us, because that's important. Can't get ready for what's ahead of us if we don't know what the prophecies tell us. And Peter, I believe, you said, be mindful of the words of the prophets and understand that a day is with the Lord as 1,000 years and 1,000 years as a day. Since I've done that, man, it has really, Peter knew what he was talking about. It has helped me out big time. So be mindful of those prophets and study this stuff out. Somebody missed it somehow. So I'm going to go back through comments. If I see a question, please read. Mojo Jojo, please read verse 27 of Matthew 16:28. 16:28 verses 27 must be in the context. So Matthew 16:28. Yeah, somebody says, for the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then shall reward every man according to his work. Yeah. He will be rewarding people with his work. Let me read 26. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? So he's talking about your actions. You're right here. Basically, it's not going to profit you to gain this entire world and to lose your soul. And that's the entire goal of the enemy, is to paint that picture. Looks like my laptop's about to die. That this world is something worth losing your soul over, selling your soul. And those people that do that are the most miserable people in the world. That's verse 26. 27 says, for the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his work. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So yes, they are not going to have tasted death until they see that. And most of them are not going to die that second death for sure. That second death being something that if you avoid it, you're in that resurrection, that first one, you're not going to experience that second death. It's not going to happen. Blessed and holy is the ones who experience that. Kingdom has finished. They have changed the timeline to hide it. Sorry, there is a lot of comments here, man. You guys are doing an awesome job of giving us a lot to read. I said I'm late joining. Shame on you. Just kidding. I'm late joining, but I believe we are in the apocalypse, which is described also in Daniel 12, with knowledge increasing and people going to and fro. Yes, definitely knowledge increasing, people going everywhere. We've got the internet now. We can look up things. We can test things. We can prove that we've been lied to about so many different things now. Matthew 26:64. Thank you. Let me see. Matthew 26. Okay, Matthew 26:64. That's the verse somebody was wanting to share earlier, and I couldn't find it because I think they had a typo. Jesus saith, and I have it highlighted in my notes here. Jesus saith unto him, Thou hast said, nevertheless I say unto you, hereafter shall you see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven. Yeah, I like that verse. That is one that we've talked about. It is controversial. Let me see if I can find that in my notes. If it's in this presentation. Thought I added it, but I may not have. Nope, I didn't. Not in my notes. But yeah, sitting at the right hand of power. Because they're saying there's okay. Oh, okay. Hold on. Mom. Okay.
Smells so scented.
It's my little girl. Apparently mom needs my wallet. Okay. So sorry for the interruption. I need to have a commercial. I can just throw up a commercial. Cut to commercial break. But yeah, Matthew 26. Yeah, they were saying, they're questioning him. This is the words that made them extremely angry. This is when the high priest, he's ripping his clothes because he's like, look what he just said. Let's look for some context. I'm gonna go back. One found yet. It says, but found none. Let's say verse 59. Now I'm going back to verse 59. Let me pull this up and see if I still have it down here so you guys can see it. Verse 59, it says, now the chief priest and elders and all the council sought false witness against Jesus to put him to death. So they're trying to find people that are going to be false witnesses because they know he's innocent. And it says, but found none. Yea, though many false witnesses came, yet found they none. At the last came 2 false witnesses. That's what the word tells you. You need 2. And so they're trying to pretend they're law keepers here. So they find 2 false witnesses and said, this fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days. And the high priest arose, because they're misquoting him, and said unto him, answerest thou nothing? What is it which these witnesses against thee? But Jesus held his peace. And the high priest answered and said unto him, I adjure thee by the living God that thou tell us whether thou be the Christ, the Son of God. So he's wanting to know, are you the Son of God, the Messiah? The word Christ means Messiah. It's not his last name. And Jesus said unto him, thou hast said, nevertheless I say unto you, hereafter shall you see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven. And the Hebrew Matthew says, you have yet to see this. Basically saying, I'm the one in the prophecy of Daniel. And I'm going to pull that up. That is in my other notes. Let me pull that up so I could show you what I'm talking about. Actually, let me just add it to the studio. Present slides. Ready for the 3rd day. There we go. Sorry, this is from the Kingdom Crew Conference. Let me find the slide on here. This is not the Kingdom Crew Conference. This is from that presentation, though. Let me see if I can look it up down here underneath the presentation. I need to turn all of my presentations into like books or something, because I have so many things that if they ever delete our Google account, these things are gone forever. My life's work. Let's see. Oop, I think I found it. There we go. And so essentially he's telling them that he's the one that fulfills this prophecy here. They're asking him if he's the son. And he says, this is Daniel chapter 7. I kept watching the night visions when I saw coming with the clouds of heaven someone like a son of man. He approached the Ancient One, the Most High, and was led into his presence. To him was given rulership, glory, and a kingdom, so that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. This is why that priest was so angry. He was extremely angry. They wanted to put him to death. They're like, look, he's saying he's going to rule over us. Heck no, we're going to kill this guy. They had no clue what they were doing. Had they known what they were doing, they wouldn't have went through with it. And so that's why they got angry. And the version that I was talking about, let me see if I can find it. There's two of them. Let me remove this real quick. Right here. In the Hebrew translation that I found, it says, the one at the top says, sitting at the right hand of God. Instead of power, it actually says God. And then in the Hebrew Matthew at the bottom, it says, I say to you, you have yet to see the Son of God sitting at the right hand of power of God, coming on the clouds of heaven. And so you've yet to see that, but you're going to, essentially. Like, this is going to happen. And people go, well, how are these people going to see him? The people that pierced him, they're going to see him. Yes, there is a resurrection. Don't forget about that. There's a resurrection. Every eye is going to see him. There is a resurrection that takes place before his return. And so it's a big deal. It's a big resurrection. It's a big gathering. A lot of things are going to happen. And we will go over that in another video. I hope we'll probably get a chance to talk about this again, maybe summarize everything, look at more evidence. If you want to send us an email and send us some verses like, hey, break this down because this is one you didn't cover, send me an email. Please send us an email. Our email is flatearthbrothers@gmail.com. It's our old channel name. I've kept the same email this whole time. And would love to look into anything else that you guys have. Somebody said we have a chat room full of Bereans. Yeah, we had a lot of people that have really, really studied. Some wonderful people here. And guys, we are just beyond blessed and in these interesting times full of deceptions to have the Holy Spirit showing us so many different things, challenging us, bringing us together. Even if we don't agree, enjoy fellowship with each other. Don't let this be something that causes us to just not fellowship. I fellowship with people that believe we're in the little season, people that keep different calendars, people, all sorts of different things. Yeah, somebody said Kingdom Crew Conference. Yeah, sorry, I had the old slide up. But yeah, just so many different beliefs out there. And it's okay. Just be peaceful. Peacefully plant seeds. Okay, don't be getting all angry just because we believe things a little different. We're all on different levels. We're all coming out of Babylon and out of Egypt, and our journeys are just different. I mean, everybody, like, some people just aren't ready for certain things, and the Father is just patient. He's been so patient. You think of everything he's gone through, everything he's done on our behalf. I mean, it's just choked me up lately just thinking about it, just what the beloved Son went through with the crucifixion. Like, the other day, I'm just thinking about that and thinking about stuff like the first thing that our Father cursed, after the man sinned in the garden. It was the serpent, and then it was the soil, and then those thorns came up out of the soil. And I'm just thinking about Yeshua with that crown of thorns. It says he became a curse for us, and golly, it just got to me thinking that very first thing, that very first curse, that crown, of thorns they put on his head. And not only that, the Ark of the Covenant, it was made out of shittim wood, which is a type of wood that has thorns. There were cherubims on top of that. Remember, there were cherubims keeping people out of that garden. And this now becomes these two figures where the Father comes to be with the people that he sets free, brings into his promised land. I mean, there's so many different things. I want to go over that. I want that to hopefully be our next hangout like this, because that curse aspect is powerful. And there was a huge, huge sacrifice made with our Father sending his beloved Son, and with the beloved Son laying down his life. He didn't have to do it. And, and that's what really just tears me up, is like neither one of them had to do anything. They could have said, hey, we already flooded this place. They're corrupt. Let's just burn it. Let's just light a match. Like this place, they're not following us. Like I've set them free out of Egypt. They turned to false gods right away. We've done all these different things. People that have seen the works of his hands turning to false gods right away. And we're this blessed generation that hasn't seen the works of his hands, like it says in 2 Esdras, but we're going to be seeking him with all of our hearts, and it's so good to be a part of that. So, but just remember, he listens to you, he hears you, he loves you, and it's a blessing, one that we all take for granted. I think I think I can speak for all of us. We take that for granted, and it's like a parent. If any of you are parents out there, maybe you're a mother, and your children are growing up, and they move on, they have their lives, and you just don't see them very much. And you think about all the things a mother has done for their children. My wife, she gets upset because we have a 25-year-old. We also have a 1-year-old. We have the full spectrum. But, of course, we have a 19-year-old as well, 13, about to be 14, 6-year-old, and a 1-year-old. But the older ones, they move on. And it's sad because how much you've done for them, especially as a mother. You've literally sacrificed your body for these children, and especially moms. I mean, that's just a sacrifice that's taken for granted. Like, I think that's one of the roles in life that's taken for granted, but it hopefully gives you a way to relate to the Most High, the sacrifices that he has made for our behalf. Yeshua, that sacrifice, when he says, I'm a worm, it's that crimson worm in prophecy in the book of Psalm, that crimson worm, that one that the young literally feed on the body and they get dyed that scarlet red color. And so just so many sad things to think about, but it should bring us joy to know that there's been a lot of suffering for us, a lot of long suffering. The Father and his beloved Son have endured so much to bring us all together and getting ready to unite us. And like we were talking about today during our word study, is it's going to be a pure language. It's going to be restored to a pure language when we're in that millennial kingdom. Everyone's going to speak the exact same language. We won't need apps like the Babel app that you have now where people are learning different languages. We're not going to need that. And so that's one of those things there that helps me see that we're not in that millennial kingdom yet, because we will all have the same language. It's going to be cool. Someone said, I Googled the context. Sorry, I get sidetracked reading these comments here. But yeah, definitely a good time. Again, Josephus was a Jewish general that betrayed his people. Good old Josephus. Flavius. Yeah, talked about him if you missed that. But lots of fun. This conversation, it's been fun. I mean, everything you guys have shared has been interesting, taking me down some interesting journeys with this topic. And I'll try to be back. If not a week from today, I'll do it on Sunday. We may have a company coming over and doing a word study, and I want to devote time to that because it's important topics that we'll be talking about, and I don't want to cut them short, because those things just seem, when you get somebody that likes to study with you, it is fun. It's fun. You learn a lot. And I haven't always liked to study. This is a miracle. The fact that I am studying like I am now is nothing, no pat on my back. I am not a studious person. I struggled through school. Even though I have a master's degree, I didn't figure school out until I was probably a junior in college. And that was the first time in my life where I really made academic honor roll and started succeeding. And it's because I learned some things about my learning, what they call disabilities. There are no learning disabilities. We have learning abilities. People try to convince us we have disabilities, and that word it's misleading. We all have learning abilities. We just have them differently. You got to figure out how to use yours. And so finally did get my master's degree, but I hated studying. I said, I'll never take a test as long as I live. I hate this stuff. And I hate studying. I hate spending all night studying and doing all those things. And here I am, a teacher, and I haven't left the classroom since the 80s. I've been in the classroom literally every year of my life since I was I think 5 years old, way back in the 80s. And so, yeah, it's not by my own righteousness that I'm obsessed with studying right now. That's a prayer that I've had for years. And finally, he's like, okay, I'm going to open up the floodgates for you guys. And so I'm blessed to be seeing the things we're seeing. And the more you see how much of a need there is for people to just fellowship like this and learn, and, iron sharpening iron. Yeah. Yeah, blessing you both. Thank you. And to Amber, y'all pray for my precious wife. She's been having back pains. I meant to say that in our word study today. And she got an x-ray, went to the chiropractor, and they said she's missing like 20 or 80% of her disc on her low back where she's been having all this pain. And so, mother's always lifting children for as long as we have. And she can carry a 40-pound child for 2 hours straight and not flinch. Like, women do these things. I couldn't do it. I set them down. I'm like, all right, my arm's tired. Set them down. Women, they have a different kind of endurance and pain tolerance. And so they do a lot of harm. Like I said, that sacrifice to their bodies is taken for granted. So if you have if your mom's still alive, go hug them, thank them, tell them sorry for taking you for granted. Thanks for your sacrifice. You're a blessing. Same for your dad. Dads, we sacrifice things too. Not quite the way that moms do, but still it matters too. Love your dads. Honor and obey your parents. That's the one command to children. But yeah, pray for my precious wife. Her and my mother-in-law have become little truth warriors, truth soldiers, and it's a blessing to have people like that. When you're doing these things, when you're studying these things out to bounce ideas off of. If I was doing this by myself, it would be very monotonous, but I have somebody that sometimes we stay up way too late talking about these things. And I'm like, well, heck, we used to stay up all night just watching reality shows or something, like we were so dead asleep. It's a good trade-off. I would rather, if I'm missing sleep, I'd rather be studying these things out. Yeah, dads are definitely priceless too. If my dad's watching, love you, Dad. I haven't seen him on here. I think he's babysitting right now, my nieces, grandchildren. But yeah, you guys are awesome. I want to keep hanging out, keep studying, but I want to cut this short because it's been an hour and a half and been a great, great blessing. And you guys, again, thank you for our supporters, our patrons, people that have been there praying for us all along. It's helping. And I just thank you so much for the seed you're planting and praying for us to have boldness, because we get nervous when it comes to sharing certain things. And even going live is out of our comfort zone. And so I thank you guys for praying for us. These things it's tough. I don't know why. For some reason, right before you go live, it's just like that spirit of fear tries to kick in. And thankfully, the Father just sets us at peace. Right when we get started, it's like, all right, you're at peace now. No big deal. Somebody said, do you think we'll see the rapture? We will see the resurrection. Yeah, the first resurrection. Somebody said, who's a vegan? Yeah, my little wife, she's a vegan. She's an herbivore. She's eating like she's in the Garden of Eden. Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this would be almost impossible to orchestrate. So many people in a little building, this is, to me, so much easier. I don't have to worry about maintenance and all that. Although I do think we need to have a meetup soon. And we are in the Northwest Georgia area. I'm hoping to have one somewhere in this area. The places, when I tried to get one for that 3-day weekend we just had, and it didn't work out. And so I'm hoping to have one soon. Hopefully when it warms up here in a little bit. It's about to start getting warm. We just had some freezes. I know some of you guys are deep frozen or in a deep freeze right now. So yeah, we love Amber. Yeah, she's a little angel, my little Amber. I got to share our love story one day. I might just devote a day to sharing our little love story. It's hilarious. I think you guys will get a lot out of it. How I met the woman, the one of my dreams. Yep. Thank you, Beata. It's good to hear from you. Hope you're doing good and staying warm. I could not imagine how cold it is where you're at. And thanks, Tyler. And thank you, moderators. You guys that have been moderators. You don't get enough respect. You need more respect. You guys do a good job. I like watching you guys do your thing and keep everybody under control. When people are getting heated, sending love, and then, putting them in timeout and all that fun stuff. I need to make some more moderators. I haven't had a chance to do that. I'll go see if I can do that later on. But yeah, thank you guys. I hope this is a blessing to you all. It's a blessing to me to be able to share these things. I feel like all we do is just sit there and study and put things together. It's nice to have an outlet to put this stuff out there and then go back and look and see if I missed any questions. So again, feel free, send us an email anytime for biblical stuff, flatearthbrothers@gmail.com. For school information about creation learning things, our email is thecreationstandard@gmail.com. That should be in the description. If it's not, I'll add it. And we'll put you on our list so you can get updates on information. If you're trying to teach your children truth, I see there's a max exodus from school, and it would be nice to do that full time. Again, Father willing, support being there and all of that. So again, thank you. We love you. And I will leave with a replay of what the little season is in our video and call it a night. So we will see you guys real soon in about a week. Love you. Stay humble. Stay awesome. We'll see you soon.
Man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth.
And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven, and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are,